Italy. In Milan, it is dawn. The morning silence embraces Malpensa Airport, the starting point for our journey. Our destination is Greece. We land in Athens, but it is not our final destination. We're going to a corner of the world that is both antique and authentic. Far away from the crowds of tourists that noisily fill the streets and squares elsewhere. At the quiet port of Lavrio, about 60 kilometers from the capital, we find our ferry waiting for us. We weigh anchor and head out towards our final destination, the island of KEA. Situated at about 20 kilometers from the Attica coast with a total surface area of 150 square kilometers, the small island of KEA is one of the lesser-known pearls of the Cyclades, the archipelago of 220 islands situated in the heart of the Aegean Sea. After about 1 hour sailing, we begin to see a coastline dotted with towns and villages with white and colored houses. Here we have alternating beaches and jagged cliffs caressed by the waves of a transparent and wonderfully blue sea. We arrive at Karthea, the main port of the island and a welcoming touristic village. Waiting for us, we find Yanis, the owner of a local dive center, and today our exceptional guide to the discovery of KEA.
The best way to discover the island is by boat, because there are so many beaches that are accessible by boat only. It's been really a very popular destination for diving here because, we have very transparent and very good visibility. We can see all those kinds of big groupers. We can see parrotfish. It's a strange issue because a few decades ago in the Mediterranean there were not. So they came from Egypt, from the Suez Canal, and now the southeastern Mediterranean is full of parrotfish, which is actually a tropical fish. It's very interesting to see how marine life changes, how the global warming affects all this, immigration of this fish. KEA is also famous for its underwater environment. It's a place that there are so many historical wrecks, starting from the Britannic, the sister ship of Titanic, that sank here in World War I. And we have a very special and unique wreck, the steamer ship Patrice. It's a very rare sample of a steamer ship that had wheels on the sides from first generation of steamer ships. That sank also in the 19th century, Kundros Reef. So it's a very special wreck and very popular among advanced divers.
We head out south along the western coast of the island. We discover a countryside that is still intact and untouched. Mediterranean scrub covers the lower parts of the hills, framing these beautiful deserted beaches. In the southern part of the island, the vegetation becomes sparse and rocky cliffs and arid land take over. Here, where humans do not live, we can clearly see traces of an agricultural past on this island.
Here we are in the southern part of the island. It's very interesting to see all those old stone walls. That is the only trace of a human. Who knows how old they are? But they are here to define the properties made by farmers in the past. It's amazing because they reach the most remote places on the island.
And it is in the remotest part of the island that the rarest and most precious jewel of KEA is hidden, the ruins of the ancient city of Karthea.
Here we are in Karthea. This was one of the four ancient cities on the island. The classical era, KEA, was called Tetrapolis, which means that the island had four different cities. Each one had its own currency. They were independent one from the other.
Mainly reached to by the sea, the Karthea archaeological site is really an open-air museum of the history of ancient Greece. Here, in fact, we feel that we have been catapulted back in time, thousands of years ago, entering an antique place like explorers of time and space. Rarely on an island so small, such excavations and archaeological finds of great importance are hidden from view in this way. The excavations, some of which are still ongoing, have in fact brought to light structures that go back to a period between the 6th and 1st century BC. Quite a jump back into the past indeed. From the Roman amphitheater connected to the adjacent thermal baths, we climb the steps that take us to the upper parts of the site. Here we find the Temple of Athena, whose Doric columns frame the panorama in front of us. A bay of emerald green waters immersed in an unreal silence. The intertwined magic of both nature and history of this place bewitches us as we visit the Temple of Apollo that around 530 BC was used by the ancient Greeks for rites and celebrations of their entire community. It's as if we are walking up from a dream as we return to the modern world and climb aboard our dinghy to return to port. This time we are going to Vorkari, in the northwestern part of the island. Nestling in a quiet bay, the sleepy fisherman's village is ideal for a moment of relax and tranquility, and above all, to take the opportunity of tasting some specialities from the sea. And it is right here, in fact, that the fishing boats return to the island full of fish for the restaurants that populate the seafront. And among the most exclusive dishes on offer, spaghetti with lobster is just what we need.
The first thing we do is boil water in a saucepan. We put in some salt. Then we put our lobster in to cook slowly. I prepare some sauteed vegetables for the sauce, a little olive oil, some sliced garlic, stir it around. We add a glass of white wine. And now we can add some tomatoes. We put in some salt and some pepper. Now we must cook the sauce for about 15 minutes, the time necessary for the lobster to cook and be ready.
When the lobster changes color, it can be taken out of the water. It is then cut open, cleaned, and then put into the sauce to finishing cooking. Now we leave sauce and lobster to cook together for a richer flavor for another 5 minutes. We add some of the cooking water, and in the same saucepan, we add the pasta that cooks together with the other ingredients. Once the pasta is cooked, the dish can be served. And to finish it off, some basil leaves.
And here you are, our spaghetti with lobster. Bon appétit!
An island, therefore, that lives with the sea and for the sea. And if in the summer it is generous with its visitors with their beaches and crystal clear water sports, and also relax, when the tourist season ends, KEA can show us its more authentic and genuine side. In order to get to know this side of things, we continue our exploration inland, where nature is both beautiful and thriving. Here, fascinating pathways that cross olive groves and vineyards are just perfect for walking and trekking, just another opportunity available on this island. An activity that helps us to have some contact with life in the countryside and the local agriculture, made up of simple things and casual encounters.
Good morning, how are you? Very well, and you? It is a beautiful day. We are going for a walk. We like to have a walk in the countryside among the olive and oak trees. I live here on KEA, and when I come here to these places, I forget everything else. The view of the sea from here is quite fantastic. Stay in contact with nature, breathing in this clean air. This is something wonderful. We are off to look for mushrooms, as it is the season now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Next time.
This is how it is. This earth gives us its gifts and makes everyone happy. Nobody is excluded. My name is Dimitri. I live here on KEA, and I am a shepherd. I grow olives in order to make my own oil, and I have a small farm. Here we do not have cars to move around. This is my means of transport. I'm going to Kora now. Taking the idea from Dimitri, we also decide to go to Kora, capital of the island. Situated in the heart of the northern part of KEA, Kora, also known as Ulida, it is a small village of 600 inhabitants, balancing on the slopes of two different hills. Stony pathways thread between the small white houses that are well looked after and colored by flowers, trees, and flower beds. Picturesque atmosphere that we breathe in here is like a mirror for the traditional and simple spirit of this entire island. A spirit that we find in the welcoming local hangouts, where it's easy to find tourists that are also looking for the beauty of KEA, just like João.
Hello, my name is João. I'm actually Portuguese. I got here by accident, which I think it's probably one of the very few reasons that most people visit KEA, because it's not as famous as Santorini or Mykonos or Ios. Interestingly enough, it's probably one of the very few islands in Greece that has maintained its strong culture. It's an island which is not particularly strong in terms of landscape. It's almost deserted. The strong points that I would point out would be that the lively atmosphere that you find in its capital, Iulis, where we are now. And what it's so interesting is that, contrary to most islands that during the summer in Greece are completely full by mass tourism, KEA has maintained a lively village throughout the year. I mean, you have schools, kids go to school, you have the places to buy your bread, people talk to you in the morning. So I think that's probably what captivated me. And because I work within luxury consultancy business, it's difficult to find nowadays in our world, which is so massified, a place which still has an attitude of simplicity, you know?
In your traveler's eyes, you know I've never flown before.
A simplicity that we also find in these buildings, and above all, in the numerous churches scattered around the town.
One of the most interesting things about Kora that we can talk a little bit about is that for such a small town and for such a small island, the amount of churches that exist in this small village is amazing. And the fact that it's such an interesting character, it tells you a lot about the daily life of the people in the island. One of the most interesting ones, and probably one of the most fascinating ones, is this one, which is the smallest, and there's only place for what you actually do in the church, you know, which is to have a little piece of your own, to do a little pray, and in the Greek tradition, ask for something special. Let's just have a look and just try to get the camera in, because it actually just fits one person, so it will be an interesting experience.
A miniature church that is so fascinating that relates to the faith of this specific people. Much bigger, however, are the monasteries that are present here in great numbers on the island. Like the San Simeone Monastery, built on the ruins of the old Temple of Aphrodite. Fascinating for its brilliant white architecture, as well as the internal walls decorated in gold and the wall paintings that have been perfectly conserved. Also, the Orthodox monastery of Castriani, perched up high in the extreme north of KEA, is so popular because of its charm and beauty. Here to welcome us inside the splendid flowery country yard is Father Demenegas Eleftherios. The first foundations of this monastery were cast around 1700s. It was around that time that several farmers of the island found, right on this spot, the sacred icon of the Virgin Mary that gives its name to the monastery. Over a period of 3 centuries, the church, the cloister, the kitchen, the rooms, and the small rooms for the pilgrims were built. It is a place of peace and contemplation, as you can imagine.
Hey there, heartbreaker, you can fall asleep and window panes is yours.
We are beginning to understand that the magic of this place is the same that permeates the entire island of KEA. Others have become aware of this magic a long time before we did, as there are men and women who come from afar that have decided to start a new life here. This is what happened to Marcy. Originally from America, Marcy has created a farming business using the natural resources of the island. Among the original products that she makes, we find these delicious cookies prepared with oak acorn flour. A recipe that she complied and experimented in her own home that Marcy has invited us to see.
So this is my home. There are a lot of things that I've made myself here, paper mache and paintings. The house was built in the late 1800s by my husband's grandfather. This is the oldest part of the house. And when we renovated, we opened up the ceiling. I've been living on KEA for 10 years. I run a guest house, the Red Tractor Farm, and we have wineries. And I'm at the movement to turn the oak trees into a viable economic resource on the island once again. I started doing a lot of experimenting about 10 years ago with acorns and what I could make with them. I knew they were edible from the American Indians in California, where I grew up. Now I make about a ton of acorn flour every year, and from the acorn flour I make acorn cookies. Humans ate acorns for millennium. It's only the last 500 years that we stopped eating acorns and prefer wheat. When I first started talking about eating acorns, they thought I was completely crazy. But as soon as they taste them, they realize that it's not a crazy idea. It's not only really tasty, but it makes you feel good. It gives you a lot of energy.
Marcy accompanies us to discover her farm and also to reveal some more of her secrets about the production of her cookies. A After having collected the acorns, they then proceed to the drying out process.
These are the acorns, and as you can see, they're much larger than most acorns. I like to pick them green because they're cleaner that way with less bugs. And then I built this table. I got the plans from the internet from a university in Germany, and it's specifically for drying out fruit. It works with the sun's energy, and it speeds up the process of drying out the acorns.
The acorns are then separated from their tough outer layer using a large separating machine.
So this is the big blue machine that makes processing acorns possible on a large scale. It takes the shells off the acorn, so we pour them in the top, and it makes an incredible amount of noise, and then they come out completely shelled. This does about 1 ton in an hour and a half.
And finally, we go to the kitchen.
So this is our farm kitchen. For service, you just ring the bell. Now let's go into the kitchen and I'll show you where I make the cookies. We slice the acorns into very thin pieces and then put it in water, and that's it. It's just like the process for taking the bitterness out of olives. You simply change the water 2 or 3 times, and then you're left with a sweet, tasty nut. And then when I'm ready for flour, I take this to the mill. I have a flour mill, and this is the final product. So as soon as it thaws a bit, you can smell it. It's really, really aromatic and very, very tasty.
A product that is really unique of its kind, and it has a united traditional taste with innovative production methods. In the same way, traditional and innovation have been the basis of other far-reaching projects on the island, in particular, projects to welcome tourists to the island. As large structures for tourists are rather scarce here, KEA wants to offer something quite original that combines comfort and luxury at the same time, together with authenticity and genuine good taste. We enjoy this rich and well-structured atmosphere at a barbecue in a typical villa on the island, Villa Lefkotea. An architecture that has inspired the entire tourist complex that surrounds it.
We are at the Ulida, at the Chora of KEA, at a really stunning traditional villa that is built in 1890 from a prosperous family in KEA and renovating in the beginnings of the 90s. The villa, after the renovation, kept its unique Cycladic character. If we go inside, we can see many objects in furniture that show us the real love about the authentic simplicity, the love to the tradition, and also the family history. Inside this property, the Villa Lefkotea, there is a small chapel, the chapel of Agios Taxiarches, for the protection of the family in terms of the health of prosperity.
Local stone, untreated wood, and recovered building materials that all make this rural architecture both modern and refined, but at the same time, simple. The warmth and the sincere hospitality that we receive just adds to the value of this home and is mirrored in the entire island. A hidden corner of Greece, unique and fascinating, that we hope stays like this for a long time. A sacred treasure.